as we walk down into the tunnels, what I want to point out is that I call this the elevator of time. And I'm not speaking figuratively, but absolutely literally, because we are walking down and going back 2,000 years of history, given that we entered on the level of modern Jerusalem, the plaza, and right now, everything you see before you is from Second Temple period. Hi, Rivki.
Hi, Malka. Thank you.
It's a pleasure having you here. Welcome to what is known as Beit HaLiba, which is the central heart building of the Western Wall Heritage Foundation. As you can see in front of us, this is a mesh of the archaeology of the past with the present and the future of this city, which is the story of Jerusalem, right? This is what it's all about. Now, this building, which we're standing in currently, is very new. It was put into use a year and a half ago. What there is in this building are offices. Number one, upstairs sits the rabbi of the Western Wall, Harav Shmuel Rabinovich. We have lecture halls, many educational programs for soldiers, for students, for all sorts of visitors. And when you look in front of you, this seems like a wall, right? But I want you to notice one thing. Do you see the pavement right here that looks a little bit new? That is actually an ancient holding cell in a police station. And why? Because before this building stood here, right outside there is the plaza of the Western Wall, right? We're facing the Western Wall. And before this building existed, there was a police station here. So right before you, one of the holding cells, and the story is that in 1992, they wanted to expand the police station. And a tractor comes here, is working, and where you see the broken part, right over there, in the middle of construction, the tractor falls 2 to 3 meters down. And as in any site in Jerusalem, what you must do when something like that happens, the first person you call is an archaeologist, right? Because we know that the city has so much history. And by the way, that's how they discovered the ancient Siloam steps down by the city of David, right? There was a burst water pipe and they began digging, and that's how they discovered that. So the archaeologist comes and they discover beneath us an entire world of ancient Jerusalem, which we will go down to discover. And this wall is actually not a wall. What they discovered, this wall is the original mountain of Jerusalem. What do I mean? If you go back 3,000 years of history, Jerusalem was made up of 3 main elements. So you had 2 mountains, 2 hills, between them a valley. You had the Eastern Mount, on top of which the temple was built. That's the Temple Mount. You had the Western Mount right here, on top of which the city was built. So people lived up there. Separating the city and the temple was the Great Valley. We will get into more of this in just a moment. What I want to do with you now, Rivki, is go into here, which is a new center which we have, which will tell the story of the Western Wall. Okay. You ready?
Hi, technician.
Okay, so you can see up on the screen, Rivki, the Western Wall, right? I want to ask you a question. How many people do you believe visit the Western Wall in a classic average year? Give me a number.
10 million.
You were very close, actually. 12 million. The Western Wall, it's a wall. It's all of 57 meters long, 19 meters tall. What brings 12 million a year to a wall? The answer is history, of course. So let's go back to the beginning. 4,000 years ago, before you had a Western Wall or temples on top of that mountain, you had a mountain, right? This is Mount Moriah, on top of which lay the foundation stone. 1,000 years later, King David himself comes to Jerusalem, he conquers the city, and he turns Jerusalem for the first time in the history of the world into the capital of a country, right? Because there were kings who ruled here before David. Jerusalem was never their capital. He was the first to do so. David's son Solomon builds on top of the mountain the first temple. So the first temple is this building. First temple will stand for about 400 years until it's destroyed by the Babylonians. The Jews go into exile, they return, and they rebuild the second temple in the exact same place. Now, the second temple also stands for about 400 years, and if we fast forward and zoom in on the mid-second temple period, a new family will come into power in the land of Israel, the Hasmonean dynasty, right? And the Hasmonean dynasty adds a new addition to ancient Jerusalem. What do? This is the Great Bridge Tour, right? What bridge am I talking about? That bridge. The bridge which the Hasmoneans built in order to connect the city to the west and the temple to the east. If you're going from the city on the western hill to the temple on the eastern hill, rather than go down and up and down and up, you build the bridge to connect the two parts of the city. Notice that the bridge has two levels, right? You have an upper level and a lower level, and they are all constructed out of arches. The Hasmonean dynasty will come to an end, and a new king will come into power in the land of Israel. Caesarea, Masada, the Herodian, I'm talking about Herod the Great, right? Now, Herod the Great what? The great builder. He left his mark in large cities around the land of Israel, and he wants to leave his mark as well in the capital. What's the heart of Jerusalem? The temple. A temple stood there for 1,000 years. He wants to renovate and expand that second temple. So you've got the northern, eastern, southern, and western walls. On top of these 4 walls, he builds a platform. This is the Temple Mount as we know it. Just to wrap our heads around the size of this platform, you can fit about 26 soccer fields up there. And of course, if you look up on the screen, this is what the second temple looked like after Herod renovated it. So if this is the western wall, which we're facing, remember you've got also 3 other walls, northern, eastern, and southern. The temple is there up on top. At the foot of the western wall runs the great central road of Jerusalem. We like to call this the original Wall Street. Of course, it doesn't end at the southern corner. It continues 600 meters to the south. City of David meets the Pool of Siloam. Here's the great bridge, which the Hasmoneans built, and Herod just incorporated it within his modern city of Jerusalem. Now, the city will come to an end, and this temple is destroyed. In the year 70, the Romans come. Jerusalem goes up in flames, and as you can see, there is no temple left on top of the mountain. But the construction which Herod did was so immense, so expansive, you can't destroy it all, even if you want to. So remains of the Western Wall survived, right? 2,000 years. We see them located right here in the plaza. Remains of the Great Central Road survived as well. We found them at the northern western corner, at the southern western corner, and they are unearthing the continuation as we speak by the City of David. I would just pose the question, what happened to the bridge? Has anybody seen a great ancient bridge in the center of the city? I haven't. What happened to the bridge? So post-destruction of the temple, the years go by, and Jerusalem is always a settled city, right? People live here nonstop throughout the years. A situation will develop where Christians and Muslims battle for control over the holy city of Jerusalem. Now, a situation where the Christians take control over the Temple Mount. The Muslims will take control over the living quarters in the city, and what separates the two armies is the Great Valley. Eventually, the Muslims win this war, and the Crusaders return to Europe, and the Muslims unite Jerusalem, but they always live in fear that one day somebody might come and divide their city. In order to make sure that that never happens again, they combine the city with the temple. How do they do that? They raise the ground level of the valley by building a foundation of arches. On top of these arches, they build a settlement, houses, connecting the city with the temple on one level. No divide. If you look up on the screen, I'm gonna recreate that settlement. But the point is to notice what happens to the ancient Western Wall when those houses are built. Ready? This is the Western Wall, right? What's happening to the Western Wall when all those houses are being built?
Wow.
It's literally disappearing. Why? Because how many walls do you need to build a house? Generally 4, unless you're building an interesting semicircular structure. You need 4 walls. If you have an immense Western Wall sticking up behind you, you would just use that as the 4th wall, and that's what they did. They built their houses right on top of the Western Wall, using it. Imagine This is the Muslim quarter of the old city today. That's almost a 500-meter long wall, right? Now, just to give you a sense of that length, if a meter is about a yard, and the length of a football field is 100 yards, you should be able to fit along the Western Wall 5 football fields. That's not what you see today. What you view today, 57 meters out of 488, so you see 1/8 of the wall. Number two, you're missing the depth. When you stand in the plaza, imagine you are floating in midair and there are 20 more rows of stones beneath your feet. I will take you today to see the final bottom row resting on the bedrock. And number three, the height. If I return to the original renovation, you see those lines, kind of like pillars at the upper part? Decoration, which was destroyed and never reconstructed. So standing in the plaza today, you are missing the length and the depth and the height, and you view such a small part of what used to be a glorious immense wall. You see that white rectangle out of the whole thing. So what happened to the bridge? It was buried. We are standing right now within the bridge at the upper level of arches. You're within the 2,000-year-old central bridge of Jerusalem. Fast forward to today. Western Wall tunnels, right? We came to a tour of the Western Wall tunnels. But that makes no sense. Why not? Because the Western Wall is I and you and every person on planet Earth knows it. It's outside, right? This is the Western Wall. Under the blue sky in broad daylight, what's the connection between the Western Wall and tunnels? How does that make any sense? It is because those houses built in the valley, the foundation, the raising of ground level was done by building arches. Each arch naturally creates vaults and tunnels running beneath the city. So at any point during the tour, if I ask you what's above our heads, modern day city of Jerusalem. What are we going to do on our tour today? We're standing currently over here. We will go down and see the bottom two arches at the base of the bridge. We will enter this structure. Beyond that, any idea, guess of what water holes could be doing down here?
Mikvah?
Mikvahot. Ancient mikvahot from the Second Temple period. We will stand beneath the greatest arch of the bridge, Wilson's Arch, resting on the Western Wall. There we will see levels of the Western Wall that have been buried for 1,700 years. Down to the bedrock. Many more surprises along the way.